The Massachusetts legislature is conducting a listening tour to explore the crossroads of firearms and suicide, and ultimately decrease the pervasiveness of gun suicide in Massachusetts, as suicide is the leading cause of gun-related deaths in our state.
I'd like to start by asking, what is this listening tour?
It's the kickoff of a statewide listening tour we in the legislature are conducting to really do a deep dive on our firearms laws. It was born of a Supreme Court decision that disrupted some of our existing licensing schemes here in Massachusetts. And what it revealed to us was that we've got a fairly complex system. It, for my money, is the best in the country. We've got the lowest incidence of firearm-related deaths in the continental United States, but obviously we can always do better. There are far too many firearm-related deaths.
The first stop on this listening tour was the Tilden Auditorium at Cape Cod Community College in West Barnstable on Thursday, February 9th.
And we're hearing from responsible gun owners in Massachusetts as well that the laws are conflicting, they're confusing, and they need to be reassessed. This tour is really going to touch on every aspect of the Commonwealth, every geographic part of the Commonwealth, and hopefully with about a dozen stops, just about every topic we can imagine with respect to gun safety and gun regulations.
State Representative Michael Day hosted the event, and the panelists for the discussion were Barnstable Police Chief Matthew Sonnabend, Ellen Dalton, founder and CEO of the NAN Project, Karen Ellery Jones, Assistant Director at Samaritans of Cape Cod and the Islands, and Kelly Cunningham, Director of the Division of Violence and Injury Prevention from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
It did seem overall a positive approach to the problem.
So again, we think it's timely. We've seen the rise of mass shootings that are almost becoming commonplace in the news. We believe that is directly attributable to mental health issues. That's an area that we have been lacking in the state. We've been getting better. The legislature has been turning its full attention to, I think, correcting years of decline in our mental health system. And so we believe it's timely to always re-examine our laws, and particularly our firearms laws, to make sure they make sense, to make sure they're consistent, to make sure they're doing what we hope they do, which is to keep people safe.
The comments, accusations, and backlash from some audience members showed that many of the attending gun owners were displeased with the event and feared that this tour and Representative Day were a threat to gun ownership.
So for you to tie this to guns, you politicians, for you to manipulate the good people on that stage is disgusting. Suicide is a mental health issue, and this state is addressing it. Shame on you.
But Representative Day, Police Chief Sonnabend, and the rest of the panelists attempted to assure the visitors that taking away the right to guns has never been the goal of this statewide tour.
To allow responsible gun owners to continue to pursue their enjoyments, right, hunters and collectors, and to make sure that firearms are not getting into the hands of those who cannot responsibly handle them.
The crowd was not all in opposition to the discussion, and multiple speakers expressed their thanks to the panel for taking this topic so seriously. A third party existed at the discussion, though, in the form of a college student who lost her own sister to gun suicide. In her speech, she posited that the issue of gun suicide could not just be assuaged by tighter gun control, but required more psychological support for teens and young adults during their tenure as students.
In November of 2020, I lost my little sister Nicole to suicide by firearm. She was 26. The thing that I heard talked about the most tonight was to ask people if they're suicidal and to help them. But what I did not hear talked about at all tonight is what you do if they say yes. What I did hear talked about tonight is how there's a backlog of mental health availabilities.
Supplementing that student's claim was a statement by Kelly Cunningham, where she urged the crowd to not be afraid of discussing suicide, depression, and other issues discussed at the panel.
It's important for us to, if we see somebody struggling, to ask that person, are you feeling suicidal? That's not going to put the thought into someone's head. Instead, we're giving them that hope, we're giving them that sense of maybe belief that somebody is hearing them.
Part of it is listening to the people of Massachusetts. We're doing, as I said, 12 stops around the Commonwealth to make sure that everyone's got a chance to come out and share their thoughts with us. Obviously, welcoming folks to contact us in the legislature as well. Go to malegislature.gov, find your rep, find myself, and send us your thoughts. So I think what you heard last night from those who were concerned about intrusion on their gun ownership, as well as those, excuse me, who wanted to focus more on mental health, was a common thread of we need to do a better job in Massachusetts on mental health as a whole. There were some sensitivities that this particular event focused on only on firearms with respect to suicide. That is what it focused on, right? This is the tour of the intersection, at least last night, the intersection between firearm deaths and suicide. We can always do better, and I think you heard last night was some frustration across the political spectrum.
Right.
We need to be doing a better job here, and I don't think anyone disagrees with that.
I would just like to ask if there's anything that you learned from the community or from the panelists or any discussions that you had yesterday about the topic of gun control.
Yeah, I thought it was incredibly valuable, to be honest, to hear some of the concerns from the community. And you heard from the Samaritans that one of the most important things to do when you are afraid somebody's battling a mental health crisis or has suicidal ideation is to ask them and talk about it openly and honestly. That the more we do that, I think, the better we're all going to be.
I'm Christian Garnett, and this is Cape Media News.